Before we get started, make sure to subscribe to the channel and like this video. That way, you'll always stay connected to our stories and never miss the next adventure. The Orbital Combat Institute hung in the void like a gleaming threat, all polished metal and reinforced viewports, spinning lazily against the backdrop of a nebula that looked like someone had spilled wine across the cosmos. Inside, the galaxy's so-called finest gathered to learn the art of breaking things, specifically each other. Now, you have to understand something about the Interspecies Defense Coalition. When various alien races decided they should probably stop killing each other quite so enthusiastically and maybe, just maybe, direct that aggression toward common threats, they created this institute, a place where the best and brightest from dozens of worlds could train together, learn together, and occasionally hospitalize each other in the name of interstellar cooperation. It was all very noble, very progressive, we're all friends now. Please ignore the several wars we fought last century. The current class of cadets looked like someone had raided a zoo, a nightmare, and a bodybuilding competition, then shoved the results into matching uniforms. There was Brontelak, who stood nearly 8 feet tall and looked like someone had taken a grizzly bear, made it walk upright, then given it anger management issues. His species, the Morgothi, were known for 2 things: incredible physical strength and an even more incredible inability to understand the concept of inside voices. Next to him stood 3 cadets from the Elixian Collective, insectoid creatures with compound eyes and chitinous armor that could probably stop small-caliber rounds. They clicked and chittered to each other in their native language, which always sounded to human ears like someone playing a xylophone inside a cave. There were others, too. A pair of aquatic beings in specialized moisture suits, their tentacles twitching with what might have been excitement or irritation. Hard to tell with the hydral species. A lone silicon-based life form that looked like ambulatory crystal and communicated through light pulses. The usual crowd for an elite military training program in a galaxy that had finally, grudgingly, admitted it was probably better to cooperate than to blow each other up. The training hall itself was massive, easily the size of 3 basketball courts, with floors designed to withstand impacts that would crack concrete. The walls were lined with equipment that ranged from recognizable punching bags, weight systems, training mats, to decidedly alien. There was something in the corner that looked like a medieval torture device had merged with a jungle gym, and nobody had quite explained its purpose yet. At the front of this organized chaos stood Instructor Hraxmol. Now, Hraxmol was something special. At 9 feet of solid reptilian muscle, covered in scales that had the color and approximate texture of granite, he was what happened when evolution decided that overkill was just a suggestion to be ignored. His species, the Neskari, had evolved on a high-gravity death world where everything was trying to kill everything else, and the planet itself was trying to kill whatever was left. He had survived that. Then he had survived 3 interstellar wars, 2 assassination attempts, and 1 very unfortunate incident with a cargo bay that nobody talked about anymore. His teaching philosophy was simple. If you could survive his training, you could survive anything. If you couldn't, well, the medical bay had excellent staff. He stood at attention, his tail thick as a tree trunk and just as likely to knock you unconscious, swaying slightly behind him. His eyes, yellow and slitted like a crocodile's meaner cousin, surveyed his new batch of cadets with the enthusiasm of someone inspecting week-old cafeteria food. "Listen up," he bellowed, his voice resonating off the walls like thunder in an enclosed space. "I am Instructor Hraxmol. For the next 16 weeks, Your miserable lives belong to me. I will break you down, build you back up, and if you are very, very lucky, you might actually be worth something when I'm done with you." It was the same speech he gave every intake. The cadets had heard variations of it before. This was the military, after all, and threatening to rebuild someone from the ground up was basically considered a warm welcome. "Hand-to-hand combat is not about fairness," Braxmole continued, pacing back and forth like a caged predator. "It is not about honor. It is about survival. It is about making sure that when all your fancy weapons fail, when your shields are down and your ammunition is spent, you can still tear your enemy apart with your bare hands." He paused dramatically. The Elixians clicked approvingly. Frontenac grinned, showing teeth that could probably be classified as weapons in several star systems. "Combat is decided by 3 factors." Braxmole held up one clawed hand, extending 3 fingers that could have doubled as daggers. "Size, strength, ferocity. Everything else, technique, strategy, cleverness. These are decorations. Helpful, perhaps, but ultimately meaningless when faced with a superior opponent." It was at this moment that the door to the training hall opened with a soft hiss, and in walked Lily. Now, here's where things get interesting. Lily stood, and let's be generous here, maybe 5 feet tall. Maybe. If she was wearing boots with good soles and had done her hair in a way that added a bit of height. She weighed perhaps 110 pounds, and that was probably after a substantial breakfast, and while carrying her training gear. She had dark hair pulled back in a practical ponytail, brown eyes that looked just a touch too alert for someone walking into what was clearly the wrong neighborhood, and the kind of build that made people use words like petite and delicate, and other terms that sounded nice, but really meant, "We're surprised you can open doors by yourself." She wore the standard coalition cadet uniform, which on everyone else looked intimidating and military. On her, it looked like she'd borrowed her older siblings' clothes and was hoping nobody would notice. The entire room went silent. Then Braxmole laughed. It wasn't a polite chuckle or a restrained snort. It was a full-bodied, bellowing laugh that started somewhere deep in his chest and emerged like a rock slide. His tail slapped against the floor with enough force to make the equipment rattle. "Did someone bring their child to class?" he roared, and several of the cadets joined in the laughter. Frontenac slapped his knee, which made a sound like someone hitting a side of beef with a baseball bat. Lily stood in the doorway, her expression neutral, her posture relaxed. She didn't blush. She didn't stammer. She just waited. "You," Braxmole said, pointing one clawed finger at her, "are in the wrong place, little one. The administrative offices are on deck 5. Or perhaps you are looking for the cafeteria? The daycare center?" More laughter. One of the Elixians clicked something that probably translated to the insectoid equivalent of, "That's hilarious." Lily reached into her pocket, pulled out a data tablet, and walked forward. Her boots made almost no sound on the training floor. She stopped at what was probably a respectful distance, though, given the size difference, she had to crane her neck back to make eye contact with the instructor. "Cadet Lily," she said, her voice clear and calm. "Reporting for hand-to-hand combat training. My credentials have been verified and approved by Coalition Command." She offered the tablet. Braxmole took it with 2 claws, holding it like it might explode. He glanced at the screen, his eyes narrowing. For a moment, just a moment, something flickered across his reptilian features. Surprise, maybe, or confusion. Then it was gone, replaced by that same condescending amusement. "Ah," he said slowly, "a human. Yes, I had heard your species was recently admitted to the Coalition. Something about demonstrating adequate technological capability. And not blowing yourselves up for a sufficient probationary period? Something like that, Lily agreed. Braxmole handed back the tablet. He circled her slowly, like a predator examining prey that might not be worth the effort of catching. His tail swished behind him, close enough that Lily had to time her breathing to avoid getting smacked by it. "Tell me, little human," he said, his voice dripping with amusement. "What exactly do you weigh? 40 units? 50? By coalition standard measurements, approximately 52 units, Lily replied evenly. 52 units, Braxmole repeated. He looked at Brontlek. What do you weigh? 320 units, sir, Brontlek rumbled proudly. 320 units, Braxmole said, nodding sagely. He looked back at Lily. Do you see the problem here, little human? My cadets could use you as a training weight. You are not a warrior. You are... What is a good comparison? He tapped, one claw against his snout. Ah, yes. You are a pet. A mascot, perhaps. A few of the cadets snickered. Lily's expression didn't change. With respect, sir, she said quietly, I didn't travel 14 light years to be a mascot. With respect, Braxmole mimicked her tone, making it sound childish. You do not have a choice in what you are. Nature has already decided. Look at yourself. He gestured broadly. No claws, no natural armor, no significant muscle mass. Your species is soft, fragile. You break easily. We're more durable than we look, Lily said. Are you? Braxmole leaned down, bringing his massive head closer to her level. His breath smelled like something had died in his mouth and was currently decomposing. Tell me, have you ever been in actual combat? Real combat, not your planet's... What do you call them? Sporting matches? I've had training, Lily said. Training? Braxmole straightened up, addressing the class now. She has had training. How wonderful. I am sure your instructors were very impressed with your forms and your techniques. He made air quotes with his claws, which was quite a sight. But this is not your homeworld, little human. This is the real galaxy. Out here, physics matters. Mass matters. Strength matters. He walked back to the front of the class, leaving Lily standing alone. However, he continued, his tone magnanimous, the Coalition has decided, in its infinite wisdom, that all member species deserve representation in our programs. So, little human, you may stay. I will place you in the remedial group with others who require special attention. I don't need, Lily started. You are dismissed to the back of the formation, Braxmole interrupted. We are behind schedule because of your amusing entrance. Lily stood there for another moment. Her jaw tightened, just slightly, barely noticeable, and then she nodded once and moved to the back of the group. She found herself standing next to Lix, a mantis-like alien who stood on 4 legs with 2 additional limbs that served as arms. Lix's triangular head swiveled to regard Lily with compound eyes that contained what might have been sympathy. That was unfortunate, Lix said quietly, her voice a soft chittering that the universal translator rendered as feminine and concerned. It's fine, Lily said. Is it? Lix tilted her head. Braxmole is known for being difficult with cadets he does not respect. Then I'll earn his respect, Lily said simply. On her other side, something that looked like a mobile water balloon, with eyes jiggled with what might have been laughter. This was Rollo, one of the blorp species, beings that were essentially sentient liquid held together by a flexible membrane. His form rippled as he suppressed his amusement. No offense, tiny new friend, Rollo burbled, but I have seen entire species try to earn Braxmole's respect. Most fail. You are. Very small. I'm aware, Lily said dryly. Just saying, Rollo's form shifted in what might have been a shrug. Maybe aim for surviving the course, instead of earning respect. More achievable goal. At the front of the class, Raxmol had resumed his lecture about the fundamentals of combat. He demonstrated a basic grappling technique on a volunteer, one of the Elixians, who clicked in protest as Raxmol casually lifted the cadet off the ground with one hand. See, Raxmol said. Leverage, position, these things matter, but mass matters more. When you have sufficient strength, technique becomes optional. Lily watched carefully, her eyes tracking every movement. She noticed how Raxmol telegraphed his intentions, how he relied purely on his strength advantage, how his footwork was actually quite sloppy because he had never needed it to be good. She filed all of this away for later. The first class continued with basic exercises, conditioning drills, demonstrations of proper stance and grip. Raxmol walked among the cadets, correcting form, offering grudging approval when someone showed promise, and generally being the kind of instructor who believed that motivation came in two forms, fear and more fear. When he reached Lily, he stopped and stared down at her. Your stance is too narrow, he said. Lily adjusted. Too wide now. Are you incapable of finding a middle ground? She adjusted again. Your guard is too low, or perhaps that is as high as your little arms can reach. He chuckled at his own joke. Lily said nothing, but her hands tightened slightly into fists. Raxmol noticed. His grin widened. Oh, you are angry, he said with delight. Good. Anger is useful. But anger without strength is just noise, little human. Remember that. He moved on, leaving Lily standing there, her breathing carefully controlled, her expression neutral. But inside? Inside, Lily was doing math. She was calculating angles, measuring distances, observing weaknesses. Because here's the thing about being underestimated your entire life. You learn to use it. You learn that while everyone is busy laughing at the small person in the room, they're not paying attention to what that small person is learning. And Lily had been learning since she was old enough to throw a punch. Her grandmother, retired Marine Corps, 3 combat tours, more scars than sense, had started teaching her when she was 8. Not because the family had military ambitions for her, not because they thought she'd end up here, in an alien training facility, surrounded by beings who could literally eat her for breakfast. No, Grandma had taught her because the world was full of people bigger than her, and someone needed to teach her that size was just one variable in a very complex equation. Physics doesn't care about fair, Mija, Grandma had said, wrapping Lily's hands for sparring. It just cares about force, angles, and leverage. You learn to use those right, and size becomes someone else's problem. Lily had learned. Oh, had she learned. And now, watching Raxmol strut around like he'd already won a fight that hadn't started, Lily felt something settle in her chest. Not anger, not exactly. More like determination with a side of spite. She had come here to prove humanity belonged among the stars, that humans could stand alongside species that had been exploring the cosmos while humans were still figuring out agriculture. But now she had a secondary objective. She was going to wipe that smug grin off Raxmol's scaly face. It was going to be glorious. The class continued for another 2 hours, and by the end, everyone was exhausted. Well, everyone except Raxmol, who looked like he could go another 6 hours without breaking a sweat. If Neskari even sweated, which was unclear. Dismissed, he finally barked. Tomorrow we begin real training. Today was simply to establish where you all stand. His eyes found Lily in the back. and some of you are standing much, much lower than others." The cadets filed out, chattering in various languages, comparing notes, complaining about the heat or the cold or the gravity. Something was always wrong with the environmental settings for someone. Lily was one of the last to leave. As she passed through the door, she glanced back. Braxmol was watching her, his expression unreadable. Their eyes met for just a moment. Then Lily smiled, small, polite, and absolutely nothing like what she was thinking, and walked out. Behind her, if she'd been paying attention, she might have heard Lix say to Rollo, "I think our instructor just made a very large mistake." And Rollo, who despite being a sentient water balloon was remarkably perceptive, rippled in agreement. "Oh yes," he burbled quietly. "That tiny human has the look." "What look?" Lix asked. "The look of someone who is about to make his life very, very difficult." They were both right, of course. But that's a story for the next part of training. For now, Lily had homework to do, research to conduct, videos to analyze. Because if there was one thing humans were exceptional at, it was studying their enemies. And Instructor Hraxmol had just made himself enemy number 1. The next morning arrived with all the enthusiasm of a dental appointment, and the cadets filed into the training hall, looking like they'd collectively decided that consciousness was overrated. Lily, however, looked alert, suspiciously alert for someone who had spent half the night reviewing training footage on her data tablet, analyzing movement patterns, and taking notes that would have made a military strategist weep with pride. Braxmol was already waiting, looking like he'd been carved from stone, and someone had forgotten to add the friendly setting. His tail swept back and forth in a rhythm that probably meant something in Neskari body language, but just looked vaguely threatening to everyone else. "Today," he announced, "we begin actual combat drills. Not the soft introduction you received yesterday. Real technique. Real application." He bared his teeth in what might have been a smile, but looked more like a threat display. "Pair up. Size comparable partners. Let us see what you actually know." The cadets shuffled into pairs. Brontelak partnered with another heavy worlder who looked like a boulder had grown legs and attitude. The Elixians formed a clicking trio. The aquatic beings partnered together, their tentacles already writhing in anticipation. Lily stood alone at the back. "Ah," Braxmol said, noticing. "The human. Yes, this presents a problem." He looked around the room like he was searching for something appropriately sized. "You there, Rollo? You are, what, 60 units?" "63, sir," Rollo burbled, his gelatinous form quivering with what might have been dread. "Close enough. Partner with the human. Try not to dissolve her by accident." Rollo oozed over to Lily, looking apologetic. "Nothing personal," he said quietly. "None taken," Lily replied. Braxmol demonstrated the first technique, a basic takedown that relied on grabbing your opponent's center mass and using your body weight to drive them to the ground. When performed by a 9-foot reptilian tank on a volunteer, it looked devastating. The poor Elixian hit the mat so hard his exoskeleton rattled. "Simple," Braxmol said, releasing his victim. "Weight plus momentum equals control. Now, practice." The hall erupted into organized chaos. Cadets grappled, fell, cursed in various languages, and generally made the kind of noise that suggested bones would be broken before lunch. Lily studied Rollo. Rollo studied Lily. They both looked uncertain about the physics of this particular matchup. "So," Rollo said slowly, "how do I grab your center mass when I am mostly liquid?" "Good question," Lily admitted. "How about we work on positioning instead? Footwork, balance points, that kind of thing?" "That seems safer for both of us," Rollo agreed. They began working through the movements slowly, carefully. Lily discovered that while Rollo couldn't exactly be thrown in the traditional sense, his mass still followed predictable patterns. She could redirect him, guide his momentum, make him flow in directions he wasn't expecting. It was like grappling with a very polite water balloon that occasionally made commentary. Cracksmole stalked through the pairs, offering corrections that ranged from helpful to deliberately insulting. When he reached Lily and Rollo, he stopped and watched for a long moment. "This is not the exercise," he said flatly. "We're adapting to our physical differences, sir," Lily replied, not stopping her movement. "You are avoiding the exercise," Cracksmole corrected. "The point is to learn how to control an opponent through superior positioning and weight." "With respect, sir, I'm never going to have superior weight," Lily said. "Precisely my point," Cracksmole said. "Which is why you should be in a different program entirely. Perhaps logistics, supply chain management, something that does not require you to physically dominate an adversary." Lily stopped moving. She straightened up, all 5 feet of her, and looked up at the instructor towering above her. "I'd like to try the technique properly, sir," she said. "With a partner who has standard mass." Cracksmole's eyes narrowed. "You wish to be thrown across the room?" "I wish to learn, sir." "Very well." Cracksmole gestured to Brontelak. "You, come here. Show the human how a real takedown works." Brontelak lumbered over, grinning like someone had just offered him dessert. This, Lily thought, was going to hurt. But pain was just information, and she was a very quick learner. Brontelak moved toward Lily with the confidence of someone who had never lost a physical confrontation and wasn't about to start now. He cracked his knuckles, all 16 of them, and the sound echoed through the training hall like gunshots. "Nothing personal, Tiny," he rumbled, his voice like gravel in a cement mixer. "Of course not," Lily replied, settling into a neutral stance. Cracksmole stepped back, clearly expecting this to be over in approximately 3 seconds. The other cadets slowed their own drills, sensing entertainment. Even the Elixians stopped clicking to watch. "Begin," Cracksmole said. Brontelak reached for Lily's center mass, his massive hands spread wide enough to engulf her entire torso. He wasn't even moving particularly fast. Why would he? She was 52 units of nothing particularly threatening. Lily didn't retreat, didn't freeze. She shifted her weight, angled her body, and when Brontelak's hands closed, they found empty air where she'd been a fraction of a second earlier. She'd moved inside his reach, closer than he'd expected, throwing off his spatial awareness. Brontelak's momentum carried him forward. Lily planted her foot behind his leading leg, not to trip him. She wasn't that optimistic, but to disrupt his base. At the same time, her hand pressed against the side of his knee, adding a vector to his movement that his brain hadn't planned for. Physics did the rest. Brontelak stumbled. Not fell, not crashed, just stumbled. Caught himself. Looked confused. The hall went very quiet. "Luck," Cracksmole said immediately. "Reset. Again." They reset. Brontelak was less casual this time, his hands moving faster. But Lily had already catalogued how he moved, leading with his right side, dropping his shoulder before committing, telegraphing his intention like a billboard. She slipped past his guard again, this time adding a sharp push to his elbow as he overextended. Brontelak stumbled again, actually having to catch himself with one hand on the mat. "That's—" Brontelak started. "Again," Cracksmole interrupted, his voice tight. They went 5 more rounds. Lily didn't win any of them. Brontelak eventually caught her twice and demonstrated the takedown, though she managed to turn her falls into rolls that absorbed most of the impact. But 3 times out of the remaining rounds, she made him look clumsy, made him work for it, made him frustrated. By the end, Brontelak was breathing hard and looking at Lily like she'd personally insulted his mother. "Adequate," Praxmol said, though his tone suggested it was anything but. "The human demonstrates basic evasion. This is not the same as effective combat technique, but it is adequate." He said the word like it tasted bad. "Back to your partner," he dismissed them. Lily returned to Rollo, who had watched the entire exchange with what might have been his version of wide-eyed amazement. "That was not luck," Rollo burbled quietly. "No," Lily agreed, equally quiet. "It wasn't." Across the room, Lix had also been watching. Her compound eyes tracked Lily with a new intensity, and during the water break, she approached with her careful, insectoid gait. "You have trained extensively," Lix stated. It wasn't a question. "My whole life," Lily admitted, sipping from her water container. "Yet Hraximol dismisses your skill." "He dismisses what he doesn't understand," Lily said. "I'm used to it." "Are you?" Lix's head tilted. "You seem angry." "I'm practical," Lily corrected. "Anger is just wasted energy." But that wasn't entirely true, and Lix's expression, as much as a mantis-like alien could have expressions, suggested she knew it. The training continued for the rest of the week, and a pattern emerged. Praxmol would pair Lily with progressively larger opponents. She would adapt, using technique and timing to compensate for the size difference. She didn't win, not in any traditional sense, but she survived. She learned, she improved, and Hraxmol's commentary became increasingly dismissive. "Technique without power is dancing," he announced one morning, after Lily had successfully avoided being crushed by a silicon-based cadet who weighed approximately 400 units. "You are very good at dancing, little human. But this is combat training, not performance art." The other cadets laughed. They always laughed. It was becoming routine. Lily said nothing, just returned to her position, waited for the next drill. But that night, alone in her quarters, she made a decision. The Orbital Combat Institute had rules. Lots of rules. Most of them designed to prevent cadets from actually killing each other, which was apparently a real concern when you mixed species with wildly different combat capabilities. But there was one rule, buried in the administrative documentation, that caught Lily's attention: the competency challenge. Any cadet who felt they were being unfairly assessed could formally request a demonstration bout with their instructor to prove their capability. It was an old regulation, dating back to the Institute's founding, meant to prevent instructor bias from derailing promising careers. It had been invoked exactly 11 times in the Institute's history. Nobody had won. Lily spent 3 hours reviewing the regulation, the procedure, the requirements. Then she spent another 2 hours making absolutely sure this was a spectacularly stupid idea that she was going to do anyway. At 800 the next morning, she submitted the formal request. By 0815, word had spread through the entire institute. By 0830, betting pools had formed. By 0900, when Lily walked into the training hall, the atmosphere had changed completely. Cadets who normally ignored her were now staring. Some with disbelief. Some with pity. A few with what might have been respect for sheer audacity. Hraxmol stood at the front of the class, holding a data tablet. His tail was perfectly still, which, Lily had learned, meant he was either very calm or very, very angry. "Cadet Lily," he said, his voice dangerously quiet. A moment. She approached. The other cadets created a circle of space around them, like they were worried about blast radius. "You have submitted a competency challenge," Hraxmol said. Yes, sir. Do you understand what this means? I believe I do, sir. It means, Braxmole leaned down, bringing his face level with hers, that you and I will engage in a formal sparring match, full contact, witnessed by staff and recorded for official assessment. It will continue until one of us achieves a submission or knockout. I understand, sir. You will be humiliated, Braxmole said softly. Not just defeated, humiliated. I will ensure that every cadet, every instructor, every being in this facility understands exactly how inadequate you are for this program. Lily met his eyes, those yellow reptilian eyes that had probably seen 1,000 opponents and crushed most of them. With respect, sir, she said quietly, I disagree. Something flickered across Braxmole's face. Surprise, maybe, or rage. Hard to tell with the scales. The match will take place in 3 days, he said, straightening up. This gives you time to reconsider your foolish decision and withdraw the challenge. I won't be withdrawing, sir. Then you will be leaving this institute in a medical transport, Braxmole said flatly. He turned to address the class. Let this be a lesson. Pride without capability is just suicide with extra steps. The next 3 days were surreal. Lily became something of a celebrity, though not the good kind. More like the kind of celebrity that makes people ask if you're feeling okay and whether you've considered therapy. Brontelec started a betting pool specifically on how long she'd last. The over-under was 30 seconds. The Elixians clicked a rhythmic pattern whenever she walked by that the translator rendered as funeral march. But Lix and Rollo became her unofficial training partners. They helped her review footage of Braxmole's previous matches, and there was plenty of footage. The instructor had competed in several interstellar tournaments before joining the Institute, and his record was impressive. 43 matches, 43 wins, 39 by knockout. He is very strong, Lix observed, watching Braxmole demolish an opponent twice his size, through sheer overwhelming force. He's predictable, Lily countered. Look at his patterns. He opens the same way every time. Intimidation display, then a power rush, then grappling if the rush fails. That strategy has worked for him 43 times, Rollo pointed out. Because nobody's made him change it, Lily said. He's spent his whole life being the biggest, strongest thing in the room. He's never had to develop real technique. You are not the biggest or strongest thing in any room, Lix said bluntly. No, Lily agreed, but I'm going to use that. She spent hours studying Neskari physiology, their joints, their range of motion, their center of gravity. She discovered that for all their strength, their knees hyperextended in only one direction. Their elbow joints, while powerful, had limited rotation compared to human joints. Their tails, while intimidating, were actually a balance liability if you knew how to use them. She was building a map, a blueprint, a plan. On the night before the match, she video-called home. The connection took a few minutes to establish. 14 light-years was a lot of space for a signal to cross. But eventually, Grandma appeared on the screen. Mija, Grandma said, her weathered face breaking into a grin. I heard you did something stupid. News travels fast, Lily said. You're challenging your instructor to a fight. A 9-foot lizard tank who's never lost a match. Grandma leaned back in her chair. That's not stupid. That's insane. I'm so proud. Lily laughed, despite herself. Any advice? Big guys fall harder, Grandma said simply. Just help gravity do its job. And remember, survival isn't about winning, Lily finished. It's about making them regret starting the fight. Exactly. They talked for another hour. About technique, about mindset, about the fact that Lily was carrying more than just her own pride into that ring. She was representing her entire species to a galaxy that still thought of humans as the new kids who might not be ready for the big leagues. When the call ended, Lily sat in the darkness of her quarters for a long time. Then she smiled. Tomorrow was going to be interesting. Match day arrived with the kind of fanfare usually reserved for planetary holidays or surprise health inspections. The main training hall had been transformed into an arena, with combat mats expanded to cover the entire floor and seating areas erected around the perimeter. Word had spread beyond the combat program. Cadets from engineering, tactical operations, even the logistics division had shown up. A few instructors from other departments leaned against the walls, arms crossed, expressions ranging from curious to openly skeptical. The betting pools had reached absurd levels. Someone had started an actual spreadsheet. Lily arrived early, wearing the standard sparring gear, minimal padding, maximum mobility. The outfit had been designed for species with natural armor or thick hides, so on her, it looked almost decorative. She spent 20 minutes warming up in a corner, going through movements that looked more like meditation than combat prep. Lix and Rollo approached, both looking nervous. "You can still withdraw," Lix said quietly. "There is no shame in recognizing an impossible situation." "The shame," Lily replied, rolling her shoulders, "would be not trying." "You are going to die," Rollo burbled. "Or worse. You know Neskari can regrow limbs, right? You cannot." "I'm aware of my species' limitations," Lily said. "I'm also aware of theirs." The hall was filling rapidly. Lily spotted Brontlak front and center, grinning like someone about to watch their favorite entertainment. The Elixians had claimed an entire section, clicking excitedly. Even the normally reserved silicon-based cadet had positioned itself for an optimal viewing angle. At precisely 0900 hours, Raxmol entered. He hadn't changed into sparring gear. He wore his standard instructor uniform, as if this entire event was beneath the effort of dressing appropriately. His tail swept behind him as he walked, and the crowd parted automatically, the way crowds do when something large and potentially dangerous moves through them. He took his position on the mat, standing at full height, arms crossed. Waiting. The referee, a neutral insectoid instructor from the tactical division, stepped forward. Her translator rendered her clicks as crisp and professional. "This is a formal competency challenge under Institute Regulation 419. The match will continue until one participant achieves a submission tap-out or renders their opponent unconscious. Excessive force beyond submission is prohibited. Medical staff are standing by." She gestured to the corner where 3 medics waited with equipment that looked disturbingly specialized. "Combatants, approach the center." Lily walked forward. The size difference was almost comical. Praxmol didn't look down at her so much as acknowledge her existence somewhere in his lower peripheral vision. "Last chance to withdraw," he said quietly, for her ears only. "I take no pleasure in injuring students." "Then don't get injured, sir," Lily replied. His eyes narrowed. The referee raised one appendage. "The challenge begins now." For the first 10 seconds, nothing happened. Praxmol stood perfectly still, watching Lily circle him slowly. She was light on her feet, balanced, her hands up in a loose guard. He didn't move, didn't react. This was psychological warfare. Make her come to him, make her commit first, then crush her counterattack. It was a strategy that had worked for him dozens of times. Lily kept circling, her eyes tracking his stance, his weight distribution, the slight favoring of his right side she'd noticed in the training footage. "Are you going to fight?" Braxmol said. "Or dance?" The crowd chuckled. Lily didn't take the bait. She just kept moving, patient, waiting. Haraxmole's tail twitched, the first sign of irritation. Then he moved. He was fast for his size, closing the distance in 2 massive strides, his arms reaching to grab her in the standard grapple she'd seen him use 100 times in training. It was the same opening he always used. Overwhelming force, immediate control, fight over. Lily wasn't there. She'd read the movement before it happened, the shift in his weight, the tensing of his legs. She slipped to his right side, the side he favored, the side where his rotation was slightly slower. As he passed, she lashed out with her foot, targeting the side of his right knee. Not to damage it. Not yet. Just to introduce the joint to the concept of lateral pressure. Haraxmole stumbled, barely, just the slightest disruption in his stride. He caught himself immediately, spun to face her. His expression had changed. The amusement was gone. "Cute trick," he said. He came again, faster now, more aggressive. His right hand shot out in a strike that could have probably dented steel. Lily ducked under it, feeling the wind from his fist passing overhead. She stepped in close, dangerously close, inside his reach where his size was actually a disadvantage, and drove her elbow into the thick muscle of his thigh. Again, not to injure, just to introduce another body part to the idea that it might not be invincible. Haraxmole's backhand came around in a wide arc. Lily saw it coming, dropped below it, and as she came up, she drove her palm into the same knee she'd targeted before. This time, Haraxmole grunted. The sound echoed through the suddenly very quiet hall. The crowd had stopped laughing. "You are irritating," Haraxmole said, his breathing slightly elevated. "Thank you, sir," Lily replied. They circled each other. Haraxmole was being more cautious now, his movements more measured. He was thinking, adapting. Good. That meant he was starting to take her seriously. He feinted left, then charged right. Lily read the feint, but not fast enough. His hand caught her shoulder, his grip like a vice. For a moment, triumph flashed across his reptilian features. "Got you," he snarled. Lily didn't panic, didn't try to pull away. Instead, she moved with the grip, using it as an anchor point. Her legs came up, her body weight shifted, and suddenly she was wrapping around his arm like a very determined python. Armbar. Textbook execution. Her legs locked across his chest, her hips positioned over his elbow joint, her hands gripping his wrist. Haraxmole's eyes widened in surprise. He tried to lift her. 320 units of Morgathi muscle should have been able to throw 52 units of human easily. But physics had other ideas. Lily had positioned herself so that his own strength worked against him. The more he tried to lift, the more pressure it put on his hyperextended elbow. She wasn't trying to overpower him. She was just redirecting his force back into his own joint. "Release," Haraxmole commanded. "Tap out, sir," Lily replied calmly. His pride wouldn't let him. Not this quickly. Not to a human barely taller than his waist. He tried to roll, to break the position. Lily adjusted, maintaining the lock. He tried to reach her with his free hand. She was positioned just out of range. The pressure on his elbow increased. Not because Lily was pulling harder, but because Haraxmole's own struggling was doing the work for her. His breathing became strained. The joint wasn't built to bend this way. The pain receptors were firing, and somewhere in his combat-experienced brain, the realization was dawning that he had made a terrible miscalculation. His free hand slapped the mat. Once, twice, 3 times. The universal signal for submission. The referee's clicks echoed through the stunned silence. Submission. Winner. Cadet Lily. Lily released immediately, rolling away and coming to her feet in one smooth motion. Her shoulder throbbed where Raxmole had grabbed her. She'd definitely have a bruise, but otherwise, she was intact. Raxmole remained on the mat for a moment, cradling his arm. It wasn't broken, but it was strained, the tendons screaming protest. He looked up at Lily with an expression that cycled through disbelief, anger, and finally, something else. Respect, maybe, or the beginning of it. The hall erupted, not in cheers or boos, but in chaotic noise. Cadets arguing, instructors conferring, someone demanding a recount of the betting pools. The medical team rushed forward, their scanners already humming as they examined Raxmole's arm. Lily stood to the side, breathing hard, letting the adrenaline work its way through her system. Her hands were shaking slightly, post-combat hormones, but her expression was calm. Lix rushed over, her compound eyes practically glowing. That was extraordinary. The way you used his momentum against him, the positioning, "Is he okay?" Lily interrupted, nodding toward Raxmole. "You are worried about him?" Lix's head tilted. "After he spent weeks mocking you?" "He's my instructor," Lily said simply, "and he needs to be functional to teach." Rollo oozed up beside them, his gelatinous form quivering with excitement. "You broke him." "Well, not broke, but metaphorically broke. You broke his undefeated record. You broke his pride. You broke—" "I get it," Lily said, but she was smiling. Across the mat, Raxmole was being helped to his feet by the medical team. He waved them off irritably, testing his arm's range of motion. It hurt, that much was obvious, but it would heal. Neskari physiology was remarkably resilient. He looked across the mat at Lily. Their eyes met. For a long moment, neither moved. Then Raxmole did something nobody expected. He bowed, just slightly, just a dip of his massive head. But in Neskari culture, it meant acknowledgement, recognition of a worthy opponent. Lily returned the bow, deeper, holding it longer. Respect earned and given. The hall gradually emptied over the next hour. Cadets filing out in clusters, still, arguing about what they'd witnessed. The betting pools were being settled with much grumbling. Brontelak left without making eye contact with anyone, which was probably wise given how much currency he'd just lost. Later that evening, Lily sat in her quarters, reviewing the match footage on her tablet. She catalogued her mistakes. There were several. Moments where she'd been too slow, angles she'd miscalculated, risks she shouldn't have taken. Her door chimed. She opened it to find Raxmole standing there, his arm in a regeneration sleeve. "Sir," she said, surprised. "May I enter?" His tone was different, less commanding, more curious. "Of course." He had to duck to fit through the doorway. Once inside, he looked around her small quarters with apparent interest. The photos from home, the training notes covering one wall, the worn copy of a human martial arts manual her grandmother had given her. "I came to ask you something," Raxmole said finally. "Why did you challenge me?" "To prove I belonged here," Lily said. "No," Raxmole shook his head. "That was part of it, but not all." Lily considered lying, then decided against it. "Because you were so certain you were right. About strength being everything. About me being inadequate. And I needed, to show you that you were wrong." "I was wrong," Raxmole agreed quietly. "I have been teaching combat incorrectly for years. I have been teaching my combat style, using my advantages, and calling it universal truth." He flexed his injured arm carefully. "You fought using principles I do not understand. Leverage, timing, joint manipulation. These are not decorations. They are weapons I have ignored because I never needed them. Your strength is a weapon too," Lily said. One I wish I had. We all work with what we've got. Your species has no natural weapons, Praxmol said. No claws, no armor, yet you have survived on a planet with predators that surely wanted to eat you. We survived by being clever, Lily said. By turning everything, rocks, sticks, fire, physics, into weapons. By refusing to accept that being small or weak meant being defeated. Praxmol was quiet for a long moment. Then, I would like to learn from you. How humans fight. Your techniques. Your philosophy. I'm still a cadet, sir. And I am still an instructor, Praxmol said. But even instructors must continue learning, especially from those we have underestimated. He moved toward the door, then paused. Tomorrow, you will demonstrate human combat techniques to the class, not as a cadet, as a specialist instructor. This is not a request. Yes, sir, Lily said. After he left, Lily sat back down at her desk. She pulled up her communication queue and started composing a message to her grandmother. Grandma, she typed, remember how you said big guys fall harder? You were right. Also, I think I just changed the curriculum at an alien military academy. Thought you'd appreciate that. She hit send, then leaned back, looking at the photo on her desk. Grandma in her Marine uniform, grinning at the camera, looking like she could take on the world and probably win. Lily smiled. Maybe being human, small, soft, without claws or armor or overwhelming strength, wasn't a disadvantage. Maybe it was just a different kind of weapon. And the galaxy was about to learn that lesson, one sparring match at a time.